welcome to CNN, the Caffrey News Network. I'm your health science anchor, and tonight we're taking a closer look at one of the most complex and sensitive topics in modern medicine, euthanization and end-of-life decision-making. Euthanization is defined as the initial ending of a person's life in order to end suffering, typically at the patient's voluntary request and performed by a medical professional. A related concept is physician-assisted suicide, where a doctor provides the means for death, but the patient performs the final act themselves. These topics raise major questions about autonomy, suffering, and the role of healthcare providers in end-of-life care. Tonight, we're taking a look at what scientific research says on how patients think about euthanization. We'll examine two peer-reviewed studies. The first was conducted by Dr. Merritt Carson, Dr. Anna Mildred, and Dr. Peter Strange. The second by Kelly G. Wilson and his research team. Together, these studies give insight on how seriously ill patients think about control, suffering, and decision-making at the end of life. Let's begin with the first study done by Dr. Merritt Carson, Dr. Anna Milberg, and Dr. Peter Strange, which explored the opinions of dying cancer patients about euthanization and personal autonomy. A key concept in their research is autonomy. In medical ethics, autonomy refers to a person's right to make decisions about their own life and healthcare. In debates about euthanization, autonomy is often used as an argument that individuals should have the freedom to decide when and how they die. In the introduction of their article, Carson and her colleagues explained that many discussions about euthanization are theoretical. They often involve philosophers, lawmakers, or doctors, but the patients who are facing terminal illness are not always included. So the researchers asked an important question: how do dying patients themselves think about euthanization? For their methods, the researchers conducted in-depth interviews with 66 adults who were in palliative state of cancer. Palliative care means treatment that focuses on comfort and quality of life rather than curing the disease. The patients were recruited from hospice units, oncology clinics, and palliative home care programs. The researchers used open-end interviews, allowing patients to speak freely about euthanization, dignity, and whether they thought euthanization should be legalized. Now, looking at the results, the researchers found that patients' opinions were not strongly divided. Some participants supported euthanizations, others opposed it, but more than half of them were undecided. Many patients said the issue was extremely complicated and difficult to judge. Two major themes appeared in the interviews: power and trust. Some patients believed euthanization could increase autonomy by giving people control over their own death, but others worried that legalizing euthanization might actually increase the power of doctors or the healthcare system, which could potentially put vulnerable patients at risk. Another important factor was trust. Many patients explained that the serious illness makes people dependent on doctors, nurses, family members. Because of that dependence, it may be difficult to make completely independent decisions. In the discussion section, Carson and her colleagues concluded that the autonomy at the end of life is more complicated than public debates often suggest. Patients may want control, but they also rely heavily on others for medical knowledge, emotional support, and care. This means end-of-life decisions often involve shared decision-making, trust, and rather than purely individual choice. Researchers call a desire for hasty death. Now, taking a look at the second study done by Dr. Kelly G. Wilson and his colleagues, which examining a slightly different question. Instead of focusing on patients' opinions on legalization, Wilson's team studied why terminally ill patients develop a desire for euthanization or physician-assisted suicide. In the introduction, Wilson and his colleagues discuss something. This phrase refers to when a person wishes their life would end sooner than it would naturally, often because of suffering, loss of dignity, or emotional distress. The researchers wanted to understand what psychological factors might influence that desire. For their methods, they conducted a quantitative study about palliative cancer patients Participants completed psychological assessments that measured things like depression, hopelessness, and the desire for death. These types of measures helped scientists understand the emotional and mental experiences of patients near the end of life. When the researchers analyzed the results, they discovered a strong connection between psychological distress and desire for euthanization. Patients who reported higher levels of depression and hopelessness were more likely to express a wish for hasted death. Interestingly enough, physical pain alone was not always the strongest predictor. Instead, emotional suffering played a major role. In the discussion, Wilson and his team suggest that some requests for euthanizations may actually reflect treatable mental health conditions. If depressions or hopelessness are addressed through counseling, psychological support, or improved palliative care, the desire for hasty death may decrease. After reading both articles, the research by Carson, Milberg, and Strange shows that many terminally ill patients feel uncertainty about euthanization. Their perspectives often involve concerns about trust, power, and the relationships between patients and healthcare providers. Meanwhile, the study done by Wilson and his colleagues are focused on psychological suffering, showing that emotional distress, especially depression and loneliness, can influence whether patients wish to hasten death. Together, these studies remind us that end-of-life decision-making are incredibly complex. They involve not only medical professionals, but also emotional well-being, ethical values, and the support systems surrounded by the patient. The people facing terminal illness, conversations about euthanization are rarely just about control over death. They are also about dignity, trust, and the quality of care patients receive during the final stages of their lives. Before we wrap up tonight's segment, we want to hear from people outside the research as well. Ethical issues like euthanization don't just exist in scientific journals. They are part of broader conversations happening in communities, families, and the healthcare system. So we took to the field to ask a few individuals what they think about end-of-life decision-making and personal autonomy. Do people believe individuals should have control over how they die, or do they think medical professionals and families should play a larger role in those decisions? Let's take a look at what they had to say.
Please state your name and qualifications for this interview.
My name is Deborah, and my mum passed away from cancer almost 14 years ago now.
How do you feel about euthanasia for terminal cancer patients?
I agree with it. Having personally seen my mum change in so many ways through cancer, changing her personality. She was gaunt, she was really ill, non-verbal, just sleeping, and she turned into something that I know that she would have hated herself. And as her daughter and being so close with her, that really killed me to watch. And I knew it would kill her to see that happened.
Did your mom's experience with cancer influence your opinion on euthanasia?
No, I believed in that before, but it's illegal in the UK. So yeah, I always sort of believe that someone should have the right to choose how they die if they feel like their quality of life is going to drop and that they want to go out a certain way. That should be on them.
What do you think are the ethical or emotional challenges of euthanasia for families?
It's difficult because obviously you don't want to say goodbye, but at the same time you don't want to see the person that you love turn into someone that they don't even recognize or be in so much pain and so much suffering. So you've got to kind of take the emotion out of it and realize what's the best thing to do in the situation. And I feel like euthanasia in most of those cancer situations is the best choice.
Thank you for your responses. Please state your name and your qualifications for this interview.
Hi, my name is Amanda. I'm a nurse care manager. I have a Bachelor's of Science in Nursing and a Master's in Health Services Administration.
As a case manager, what role do you play in supporting terminal cancer patients at the end of life?
So basically, what care managers do is we coordinate with multidisciplinary teams, including the doctors and nurses. The doctors have the initial conversation about hospice care, and then we basically speak with the patients and their family and describe how it can be an individualized plan of care for them depending on what they'd like and which modality. I let them know that they can either have hospice at home, they can have hospice at the hospital potentially, or they may potentially have to go to a hospice house. I just let them know that I send out a referral. Hospice nurse will come and evaluate them, speak with the family, and kind of develop an individualized plan of care.
What are your personal thoughts on euthanasia for terminal cancer patients?
So personally, I mean, in viewing, many patients over the years, I am absolutely in favor of euthanasia. I think people should have the right to choose how they would like to die and die with dignity and respect and, a quality of life intact and die in their own terms.
How do laws and healthcare policies affect how you guide patients and families through these conversations?
So as a care manager, we are expected to provide patient choice. So basically, like let's say I live in Brevard County, we have different agencies within Brevard County. They can all offer a different aspect of care, but what we do is present them with a listing. It's from the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services, and it lets them know quality ratings in various areas from real patients who have filled out surveys. And this way people can make a more informed decision if they're not familiar with that particular hospice agency or any hospice agencies for that matter.
Thank you for your responses.
Okay, what is your name and occupation?
My name is Tabitha Domino, and I am a marriage and family therapist.
What is your understanding of euthanasia on cancer patients?
Well, my understanding is that here in Florida it's illegal. However, it is legal in other states. That's about as much as I understand as far as the legality of it. And some people will travel to those other states depending on where the states are and what the regulations are for those states in order to be able to have access to it if that's a choice that they want to make.
Do you think it's ethical to allow cancer patients to have like medical assisted suicides is like another way to put it, or like euthanize themselves? Or what are your opinions on it?
Yeah, actually, because there, like the ability for us to make that, us as humans to make that decision for animals exist. However, we can't make that decision for ourselves, which is kind of an oxymoron to me. If we have enough ability to make it for animals, and animals can be in pain and maybe can't advocate for themselves or make the decision for themselves, they're dependent upon humans, then that would mean we should be able to do it for ourselves. And so, yeah, I think that everyone has the right to be able to do it and have dignity doing it versus, if you live in a state like Florida that doesn't allow it or it's illegal and you have to take other measures if that's your choice, then it looks more emotional caused, or somebody committed suicide because of this or that, whereas it could be more medical, planned, well thought out decision, but that decision is taken from people that live in states like Florida. So yeah, the concept is odd to me, that it's kind of an oxymoron, but I think that people should have the right to do it if they so choose. And I mean, if somebody is going to do it, they're going to do it regardless of where they live, and it would be, if there was services available, medical services with the right type of medication that can be planned, you can say goodbye to your family, you can explain to your, there's all of these things around it. Whereas if you don't have that medical supervision and you attempt to explain it to your family, they're going to talk you out of it. They're going to, they might still talk you out of it if it's planned, but still it's the same result happens, but with the medical oversight, it adds a different layer to it. So
yes, I think that people should have access to it if they so desire, especially when they're in pain and hurting and, you know, are dying soon anyways.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Ava, and I'm interviewing Sarah, my hospice nurse, about the article from Palliative Medicine, Dying Cancer Patients' Own Opinions on Euthanasia and Expression of Autonomy, a Qualitative Study. The authors include Carlson, Milberg, and Strang. Sarah, can you explain what you do as a job?
Yes, so I'm a hospice nurse. I've been doing this for about 4 years now. I talk to different patients and, talk to them about their goals of care. And, some are still, getting active treatment, and some are trying to figure out if they want to stop that treatment and make sure they're comfortable. So that's kind of what I do.
And do you have a lot of cancer patients on your services? And what types of cancer do they have, or do they just have one?
Yes, definitely very different types of cancers, ranging from stomach cancer, lung cancer, throat cancer, liver cancer. Most recently I've had, so a very wide range of cancers that I deal with.
43 patients that were interviewed chose palliative home care as their service or hospice houses, so like hospice in a palliative house. Can you describe what palliative versus hospice means?
Yeah, absolutely. So palliative care means that, specifically in a cancer patient, that they are still getting active curative treatment, but they have symptoms that the palliative team is going to manage, such as nausea, vomiting, extreme pain, things like that. So the palliative team is focused on their symptom management while they're still getting that active treatment, versus hospice services where you're stopping that active treatment and we're just focused on your comfort, your quality of life, and your symptom management as well.
And what does patients at the hospice house look like? Are they imminent? Are those symptoms managed there as well?
Yeah, so typically at the hospice house, our goal is to get your symptoms managed. So I've sent patients there for pain management or respiratory distress, and our goal there is to provide kind of a focused care on that symptom. So if they're in respiratory distress, we're going to focus on managing that, getting their respiratory rate down, and helping them breathe a lot easier.
Per my article, human euthanasia is legal in Sweden, and some patients say they would consider it for their future. Would you if you were in their shoes, and why?
I've definitely thought a lot about that in the field that I do, and a lot of studies that I've done. And I think if I was in their shoes, I definitely would consider it.
Do you believe hospice is a better option than human euthanasia?
I do. Yeah, I mean, definitely hospice is an option, but depending on what the disease is, I think it's really disease dependent. If it's going to make me bedbound and, have no quality of life, then I don't want that, so that would be my thinking. But for patients, and again, definitely on the disease process, but for cancer specifically, I think hospice is a really good option as well.
Many informants expressed wishes to limit their future medical care and not prolong life in all situations. Why do you think a majority of the group would want to opt out of treatment?
Yeah, a lot of the treatment that cancer patients get makes you sicker because it's trying to kill the cancer out of your body. So a lot of those patients probably don't want to feel those symptoms anymore. They don't want to be in pain. They don't want to have constant infections. They don't want to have to hide from their family. That's no quality of life for them. So definitely I respect their decision because it's a lot to take in.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Sarah, for interviewing with me.
Absolutely.